Sweet. What's up, you beautiful fucks? Welcome to another edition of Down to the Beat podcast. I'm, of course, your host, the blackest with the mackest. I don't know, Logan Brown. Guys, today is a great day. It's a Tuesday. We're recording this on a Tuesday, which means that it's $5 if you want to go see a movie at the Cineplex Odeon. It's also a day where I get to interview an old buddy of mine who was one of the first people that I ever got to see that tangibly was able to make money creating art. Specifically, musical art. We're not talking Picasso. We're not talking like Van Gogh. He's not that depressed, truthfully. Guys, from the wicked nerd rock band, super excited to introduce my boy, Brock Tinsley. Dude!
How's it going, man?
I'm doing great, dude. How have you been? Like, it's been, you and I have watched each other from afar, with foam in our mouths.
Yeah.
As, like, we've both done our thing. And the evolution of your...
I've needed, like, binoculars to see how far you've come, man. It's like, all genres, nothing's safe creatively. It's like, from the comedy now and stuff, it's been really cool to see.
Oh, thanks, dude. Yeah, man, from humble beginnings in, like, a high school band to, like, playing the Royal Oak in Stittsville from 8 to midnight every Saturday or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Dude, yeah, when I remember, so again, like for the folks at home, Brock and I have known each other for a long time, like longer than 10 years, long time. Like
It's been a while.
Fuck, man. Hang on, I just have to like remember that I have gray in my beard now and be really upset about it for a second. You came to Ernestown Secondary School, which was my high school, back when you guys were called Colfax, which is now the name of your record label, which like I want to get into shit like that as well, and it was you and your singer at the time who, like, this was like pre-Ian days, and I remember you guys just like, it was the first time that we'd ever heard about like the big three media corporations in Canada paying your dues. I'd never heard the word SOCAN before in my life, and like this was a high school in Odessa. Like, all of us were there for a free credit, and then these two guys walk in and are just giving us the business,
The
you know?
lowdown.
Yeah. And it was just, it was me and my other bandmate at the time, I feel like, because since then, I've taught high school, and it's like, you really do just find the one kid who's just like watching you like this and be like, all right, this one's for you. I have to pretend I'm talking to everybody else, but this one's for you. And we just soaked everything in. And then you guys had a concert in the gym, which to this day is like, people are like, Madison Square Garden, that's where I want to play. No, the gym at Ernestown is how I know I've made it, dude. And there was like a $2 buyout, and you guys just fucking rocked the house. And it was like, it was borderline sensory overload for me, because I remember seeing you guys crush. You had this like, it was like a cherry red, like Les Paul, but it was like sanded down, like it was like very like wood grainy shit. Yeah. You had this haircut, you know what I mean? Like fucking, I couldn't do it because mine swoop goes up. The swoop,
I believe, is the technical term, yeah.
The swoop, dude. Yeah, I didn't want to say Bieber or anything like that, but it was like, you know what I mean? So I was watching you rip with your band. It was a rock band, and then every girl that was around me was being like, oh, these guys are so hot. And I was just like, music. Like, if I wasn't full tilt in it before, I'm full tilt in it now. Now, here's the deal. Death metal, not like that's a big sausage party a little bit. So I was a little bit disappointed as I continued on my path to find out that I would not be swooning as many ladies as the Colfax boys.
I mean, but sausage is, you know, a staple of every barbecue. So it
is a staple of every barbecue.
And yet the death metal never became the soundtrack to like guys with like shirts tucked into their sweatpants with grass-stained trainers. So you'd think, based on what you say, that there's like a injustice somewhere.
There is an injustice, absolutely. I don't know, like with the long hair and the tattoos that I would rub onto myself, you know, like it was, I figured I would be drowning by the time I was 16, but lo and behold, here we are. But dude, like the trajectory from that into getting Ian in the band, releasing One Big Quicksand, like adapting a much heavier sound, like down-tuning the guitars, but then leaning into, and I feel like this, like, because for me, especially with the advent of social media, I feel like the only way to do it in a consistent way is to make sure that you're doubling down on exactly who you are, and every version of yourself that you're putting out there is like authentic to you. So when you guys pivoted into the nerd rock thing, and we're kind of getting there with the trading cards and the cool different merch ideas. But then when you really were just like the Glimmer Shot came out, and you were like, guys, let's just be fucking dorks. Like that was like, what was the thought process behind that? Was it like a lot of like throwing spaghetti at a wall until you're like, if we're gonna do this, let's make sure we're us no matter what?
I think like when Ian joined that band that you talk about with like the down-tuned guitars and that certain approach, we did a lot of touring where we saw it as very much like we are off everyone's radar right now. No one's really paying attention. Metal guitar players from Odessa notwithstanding.
Yeah.
So our logic was like, let's like mess up frequently and early and really kind of figure out like what doesn't work about the music that we now want to make together. As you mentioned, Ian was a bit of a latecomer, but we've been playing together now for 10 years. Yeah, so I knew we would never get to those kind of numbers without kind of getting on the same page and going, what would we like to do? And then by sort of like running the old project into the ground, we kind of knew, okay, here's some things that we took some chances or experimented. And I think the authenticity or the lyrical subject matter you spoke of, that was something we kept coming back around to, where it's like, are we just gonna be one of those other rock bands that, it's like diary entries put to music, like, girl done me wrong, girl done me right, broken hearted, bluesy kind of stuff, or, and we kind of realized we were having all these philosophical, what do we want our band to be meetings over playing like Call of Duty and
yeah.
So even though we were not always living together or like in living quarters together, video games literally brought Ian and I together. And it was a way that we could like daydream about, the places we wanted to play and the goals that we had. And we were just kind of stuck in Canada playing video games in between tours and stuff. So I think that was like, it was like a light switch where we kind of found our way into, hey, like we can be inspired about this stuff. And it was only until when we changed lanes, we started playing shows under this nerd rock angle.
Yeah.
And people were like, explain to me, as someone who's a big fan of like Led Zeppelin, like what's nerd rock? And I'm like, well, they wrote songs about Lord of the Rings, like a lot of like Blue Oyster Cult wrote songs about Godzilla, right? These bands. So we kept trying to like point to like, we're not even the first to do it, or even certainly not the best to do it. Where like most rock bands are kind of dorky, not very good at social skills kind of guys. So we just kind of figured like everyone's doing it. That was what rock music meant to us, I guess. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, like, how does one I understand that like Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, sex symbol, Jimmy Page for 14-year-olds apparently. But we're all like, we're going to do that on this podcast, by the way. I'm so sorry, dude. All these guys are sex symbols. You forget that like, in order to get good at an instrument, you have to sit down and practice. There's an element of nerdiness in music in general. The will to sit down with a piece of wood with some fucking strings on it for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 6 to 8 hours a day. If
it's
you're
the
in
same
Dream Theater.
willpower as learning like combo moves from Tekken. You know what I mean? Like it's like, for me, a lot of like my formative years was a lot of like, not now, I'm practicing. And whether that was Mortal Kombat or guitar, it's like, no one could get me out of the bedroom because it was like you had to work on things, right?
That's amazing. Yeah. No, and it's so true. I mean, Ramble On has got like, what is it? He talks about Gollum. I think he literally says, "In the mouth of Mordor." You know what I mean? Yeah, the evil one. Yeah, dude. It's like it's already there in rock music. What I like about Double Experience is the same thing, and I know that you and I share this like this kindred love of Coheed and Cambria. But it's very similar in the vein of like, if you're all in on the nerd stuff, there's more than enough Easter eggs and references in the lyrical content that you can be like, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, Stripes and Bill Murray, Ghostbusters, let's go. But if you're just taking it at face value as like a beautiful song that is referencing or using these things as metaphor, you're getting that as well. You don't need to read the Amory Wars to be like, Wake Up is a beautiful song written by Coheed and Cambria or something like that. And I feel the same way about Double Experience. The lyrical process, is that totally on Ian? Do you guys get together and
These days, it's pretty much 50-50. I think in the earlier days, it was probably more like it was a lot more clunky, where sometimes Ian would do a demo and the lyrics would be like, baby, I'm a queen, I'm the sweetest spider, up a dub step a web. Like literally, that's like a verbatim thing. And we were like, writing 2 syllables.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's easier than other times, just because it's like we have to think of a 5-syllable word, and
Yeah.
your solutions to that can be pretty clumsy. So I think in the early days, the collaboration was like, quick, find the missing word to make it fit.
Right.
And then these days now it's like Ian will come with like, I want to do a song about, a certain subject. And then we'll kind of talk about, like, we start with ideas more than how we used to start with like, here's a riff, or
Right.
or Ian going, here's a set of words, or me going a set of words. Like, I think these days we're more likely to go, we want to write a song about, this event or this, like
Right.
recent example is like we wanted to write a song about The Last of Us, but like even there, it's like, okay, well, do you want to write about a certain character, a summary, like this? So I think we just start with something that's exciting,
Yeah.
and then whether Ian pens the final words or we're still there plugging in 4-syllable, rhyme dictionary kind of stuff. It's like, it's very like, it might not have started 50-50, but I think these days, without even really trying or insisting on doing 100%, it ends up being 50-50 anyway.
Sitting down and going, like, starting with concept first, which is interesting because like I notice, like, it changes for me because sometimes I'll write songs in my car, and if I write songs in my car, then it's thesis first, and then you continue until now I have to go home and figure out like the key that I played it in or move it around until I'm comfortable.
Totally.
But starting with the song thesis first, especially when the thesis begins from a place of like a pop culture reference or a nerd reference, do you take musical inspiration perhaps from like the vibe or the soundtracks of those things? Like, amazing, cool.
Yeah,
That's
I think some of the best, my at my most inspired is like, you put your favorite shows on mute kind of thing, or you're, like I mentioned, we're playing the video game and it's like there's something in the background, and you mentioned like the Glimmer Shot, but it's like, yeah, maybe if you were to sort of like look at the Destiny main theme and the Glimmer Shot, you would find that they're quite literally in the same key. So it's like it's these things that we either notice it, or when we're sliding the capo around going, where should it be? Someone might make a suggestion going, we should try and emulate this. So I think like for Ian and I, like a big thing is like the relationship between art imitating life or life imitating art. Like we love to just make that the same thing. We love to just go in circles till you can't tell where it started and where it ends.
That's so cool. That's interesting. And like it's something that, again, to your point earlier about nerd rock being something that has permeated and been in all rock music. Looking at Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult, which you guys did a fucking wicked cover of, by the way. Looking at Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla, it starts off with a crazy heavy riff and that kick drum which sounds like Godzilla's in Tokyo stomping around. That's really cool to take those like themes, chords, I mean, just like melodic ideas, or even just like sonic concepts, because I mean, what you're inspired by musically from The Last of Us, I mean, I would immediately go to the acoustic guitar, whereas if I was playing something like, oh shit, man, I don't know, like Outworld or something like that, I would want heavy electric guitar, crazy space sounds, phasers and shit like that.
Exactly. And I think that is just songwriting. I think if someone, anyone writing music, like, I mean, one of my favorite artists, Billy Joel, it's like he can like change keys 4 times in a song, but then over top of it, it's like that song, She's Always a Woman to Me. It's like he's literally singing about how she's changing her mind and he's changing keys and all this thing. So it's like, he's not a nerd rocker, but I can still hear, examples by just people who are recognized as songwriters going, they obviously think about painting with words or trying to actually like, if they have a lyric, they're probably sitting there like going, it doesn't sound like the feeling that I really, had this, brainwave to sing about someone who changes their mind. How do I do that? So I think that like, yeah, whether you're the singer for Coheed and Cambria or Double Experience or Billy Joel, I think like when the task is songwriting, you can only go on instinct so long before you have to start kind of like, okay, I've been inspired enough. Now looking at it objectively, how do I bring out the details that are there? And that probably involves like, yeah, looking up like, new keys, new chords, new sounds, so that your Rolodex of like being able to like match things together it does become more immediate. But I don't think you can be a songwriter, just run on instinct forever and, stumble into these like songwriting concepts of like, wow, the chords really worked well with these lyrics. Like you kind of, at least for me, I couldn't imagine doing it any other way and like tripping into,
Yeah.
like the songs that we've written without being like having a little bit of knowledge about the subject matter they're inspired from.
Of course, of course. And like even like not that I'm not a big theory guy. I know enough, but for me, for like what I need to accomplish with it, but it is something as simple as like when you think of an A minor chord being sad and you think of C major as being happy, well, I'm down, so it would be G minor and then B flat major or whatever. But those concepts, it could be as simple as that when you're telling a story. It's why songs like Pumped Up Kicks throw people for a fucking loop when they're like, this sounds so happy, and then it's like, I went to school with a gun, shot everybody, now they're dead. Lyrics, that was the original draft of the song, by the way, everybody.
Your lit gunpowder. Oh, I couldn't breathe without you. Oh, rocket fuel and iodine, 1,000 neon lights. You're so fine, you're so fine.
What's great about that, and I think it's like super important for you guys because you are like a small ensemble now, is like that those melodic concepts continuing to tell the story, and even sometimes like pick up where the lyrics would have left off in certain situations. I think that like for instance, like in So Fine, you guys have this like very, very cheeky, like there's a bunch of like almost like funny chemistry jokes about like getting down and dirty with your girl.
That song is like a long dad joke.
Yeah, dude, but it's fucking great, man,
Thank you.
And what's cool is like from a lead playing perspective, not the solo specifically, but the end of the song. I mean, you guys are playing fives pretty much the whole way through. I'm trying to think. So you're up a semitone, so that.
Yeah.
And then that sort of thing. But you've got this like in that final chorus. So my instinct with the acoustic guitar is to play these big full chords, but I would imagine it was more like. But then you've got, that sort of stuff is happening in the background that's like still continuing to paint this picture and like fill in not just the chord, but continue to like tell this like horny story. Like,
yeah,
it's great, man. I feel like it's a lot of this. How much of it is like is methodical and how much of it is just intuitive? I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens.
I think like you mentioned a really good point, because artists like Prince and like those all those Motown artists, like that's what I was raised on. I really wasn't raised on rock, where Ian, he was raised on a lot of like the like almost to the point where like the hair metal and like Poison and bands like that was like his bag. And one thing that they all had in common was, they have incredibly like lustful, I guess you could say, like lyrics. So when at the time we made that record, that was really apparent that we want it to be like very obvious we are a rock band. And while rock bands certainly rely on the tropes like the sex, drugs, and alcohol, we kind of felt like there was like maybe some like the undue misogyny side of rock music that we didn't want to like be associated with, but to sort of make it undeniable that someone could play our record and go, they're a rock band, not a, alt metal band, not a this band. We want it to be like very apparent. So a lot of that kind of started with like, well, if we don't want the music to, sound like this like, AC/DC ripoff, we wanted to make the music at least be in the ballpark of like, it's not just like, Happy Valentine's Day, baby. We wanted to kind of be a little bit like, have rude and some attitude, right? So I think that to us was like important to like prominently feature. And then if you have these more like, and maybe you can back me up here, but sometimes when you're getting in all jazz mode, it becomes like above the shoulder. It's very calculated. You're trying to like, just sort of like wander around. But when you're in pentatonic land, that's like below the hips kind of energy where you don't even have to like, you're not thinking about it at all. You sort of just like lock into a shape, right? And so that was like another thing where it becomes like, okay, that's how we express the rock angle, is like simpler kind of like lean on the pentatonic stuff and lean on the characteristics of rock music, but then completely lyrically do a left turn.
Yeah. Something I've always appreciated about your playing though is it's like it's always whether it's like one note or an entire like motif. There's always one thing where I'm like, I wasn't expecting that because I have like I obsessively listen to music, so I have this thing where once I find a player, I immediately know exactly where they're going to.
Yes.
And you are hard to pin down because you'll be like, oh, pentatonic, and then you'll do like for instance, So Fine is a great example because it's got that. I'm trying to think. And then this weird fucking. Like, what the fuck?
I wish I could.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember how exactly that was because I'm not in the same tuning. But that was very. Yeah.
Very Eric Johnson, like targeting the chord tones. Very cool, man.
And it's like I like when different ears pick out different things because like I can't say I'm familiar with the Eric Johnson material, but by and large, I think to me for most any solo I've played, if I can't audiate it, if I can't literally do what I just did and if I can't do that, I probably won't play it because that's how I actually figure out how I want to do it. But when it's just running up and down scales, which is like the shit when some people do that. Like, not only am I technically really unable to do that, but it's like, okay, we have this song. It's got a very, like, again, going back to the whole thing of like, the reason we wrote it was this lyrical idea. So the music's already taken a back seat.
Yeah.
You've got to your second chorus and it's like, all right, Brock, well, you want to do a solo? And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do one, it has to be as lyrical, dare I say melodic, as the vocals that Ian's been doing. So it's like continues that theme.
Yeah.
So all those little licks I'm doing is, even when it gets like to be flurries, it's nothing like, I couldn't hold a conversation down and shred like, some players are able to just,
Right. But I like it's bringing the modern touch into that rock, the classic rock vein. Cause that's just enough. I call licks like that, like sneaking broccoli into the mac and cheese. Like people, like the mac and cheese is like, you know what I mean? But right before that, you've got that weird sliding lick back, and it's like, I see what you did there.
It's just enough to, exactly.
And
that's like, so nothing's really changed. All these years later, I'm still playing to the one solitary guitar player in a gymnasium, who's like going to be like, I like that. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's like, it, I'm putting the broccoli in on purpose, I guess you could say.
Right, exactly.
Because it's like, if it's all just the ending lick there, it does sort of get like, I'm tired of this, right? You kind of want to
understand. It's cool, man. It's cool though. Like the amount of thought, like, because there's clearly so much heart, not to be like a boomer. There's so much soul and feel, dude. But there's clearly so much heart in the music. But the amount of like thought put into exactly where certain thick concepts are going to come together, and this is for this and this is for that. Like it's really interesting the way like a piece is crafted for that like specific. That's cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So with regards to So Fine, because I have the lyrics up here. How did that song come into concept? Was that a riff? Because that was So Fine was the first release, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be, was the first release where you guys were no, we're a three-piece now, or like Ian and I are like the brainchild behind and the primary songwriters, and Ian is now playing bass, and because he was doing some crazy stuff as a frontman. So when I saw him playing bass, I was like, how is this gonna go? But he's still a fucking monster frontman. So it's like, congratulations, by the way, hooking up with him.
Oh,
like,
thanks, man.
Unreal.
Yeah, well, let it be known that the bass player is the real boss of the band, right? That where they put their hands is like the foundation of like essentially making polychords around it, right? So it's like whoever you want to know who's in charge, sort of like of the harmony, I suppose. It's like bassists do hold a lot down, and when I watch him like do his frontman thing, sing in tune, lock in with a drummer, make eye contact with people, like that to me is like that's a whole other sort of like full body experience. So like with drummers, like I don't know how they put it all together. So for me, it's like guitar is just sort of like these.
Of course,
So it's like I do have to give him props, but But yeah, with So Fine, I think that was a classic example of, at the time we were still writing songs of like we would get in a room and we would go, okay, how does the song start? And then it would be like, I think it should go. And we go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we'd like write it chronologically. We get the first 10 seconds, rehearse it, and we go, cool.
Yeah.
Then where should it go? I think it should just get bigger. Right? Then we'd say, okay, so writing it all chronologically, we're not thinking about any dad jokes, any chemistry, like all that is like, we're just like, cool, we have like, riff 15, and then we like put it in the folder and we go back to playing video games, write something else. Then when it comes time to go, all right, let's pull up some demos and like write to them, because even though that's how we used to write songs, I don't advise anyone write songs in that way, because it starts to like, you're forcing some aspect of, as you know, like lyrics and composition together make a song.
Yes.
I do find, for me, it's very difficult to just hear like an instrumental demo where for some reason in the garage it felt right to us to do a verse 8 measures instead of 4 measures.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, now you gotta decorate those measures with words where maybe you're like, maybe I want it to be shorter, right? And so you start like editing the songs. You're sitting there going, well, if I want to sing this, I would have shortened that, but if I do sing long, I'll keep the verse, and you're just like, you're kind of plagued with stuff, as opposed to just, you can sit there and like, at the same time you're having the,
Right.
like you can start to, oh, now that's inextricably linked. And that's all a sidebar to say with So Fine, we just plucked a demo out of the folder.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of ideas. Oh, I think we should do a rock song that is like, it's still, relying on these sort of like lustful tropes, if you like. But the gag is they have basis in chemistry. And then Ian went, that's funny. Okay, well, what are the lines? And then he just and with that So Fine chorus, that was like one take. Ian just read the words that I gave to him. You're like, which is why that whoa thing is there, because it was kind of a placeholder of like,
Interesting.
there was more gaps where maybe he would have sang and gone really, really completed it in a different way. But because I gave him words with a chorus length that we had, he just sang some woes and other nonsense, because to him it was like, oh, we'll think of something later. And then it ended up being just the final. We never edited it. We just went, keep it. And
that's so cool, man. Interesting. So I'm going to talk to the folks at home for a second. Having a placeholder in your lyrics, totally fine. You think of songs like The Boxer by one of the greatest songwriters of all time, Art Garfunkel, and Paul Simon. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Paul Simon is much better. Anyways, we just look the same. I'm talking too much. What I'm trying to say is the Lie La Lie chorus, all right? That was a placeholder. Paul Simon actually hates performing that song because he thinks it's fucking stupid, that he just goes, lie, la, lie, lie, la, lie, 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 la, lie, la, la, lie, lie. But, as that guy outside honking will agree, one of the greatest songs of all time. So fucking throw a placeholder in. Can't think of anything? Think of a catchy melody. Make the verses be the part where you're tugging on the heartstrings and making your mom cry about how she didn't love you. You know what I mean? All right.
See, I would have like, where it's so funny you did like the Paul Simon reference, because my example of leave in the nonsense is Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh.
Like the.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've said we literally tried to put words to that.
Yeah.
Having fun.
Yeah.
And they're just like, it's nothing we tried felt as cool as.
Yeah, dude, that's so good.
So that stuck with me. Again, being raised in that stuff, I was just like, yeah, sometimes you do not need to overthink it. And sometimes you really want to actually like find hooks, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But like, then ever since kind of like knowing that, the goal was to always like, we want to do a song that we have the syllables, but we're like, should it be la la la's or da da da's, or and we've sat there like trying things out and be like, no, we're not trying words out, we're just trying different, scat, I guess.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like, whatever leads to like the completed song that you're like proud of. Because at the end of the day, I mean, like, we're two guys with acoustic guitars and mustaches, so it's like you might think that we just want to sing about our feelings and our like ex-girlfriends all the time. But sometimes you just sit down and you just write a fucking kick-ass song. And you're like, all right, that's the thesis behind this is like, we wrote a dope-ass rock tune, and that's just the way she goes. You're not supposed to cry when you listen to this, and if you do, I hope you're getting help. But like, whatever happens, and you just got a kick-ass song with a great hook, and then done. Song completed. On to the next one.
I think, yeah, you tied the bow on that perfectly, where it's like, out of all the songs, I've been a part of creating, I think So Fine represents like the accident. Like, I think that was like an era where we weren't really like intellectualizing it all that much. It was like, which is to say that like, yeah, if someone out there is like, sort of getting like, oh man, I don't think about my songs on 6 levels like, the Claudio does, or
Yeah.
these people like, it can feel intimidating. It's hard enough just to like learn a chord progression or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like, you don't have to do this at all. And I think So Fine is definitely like a remnant of back when, we had probably like 10 songs to our name or less.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about anything. And it's like, and if things work, you're just sort of like, it's like the whole metaphor of like when you play a pinball machine for the first time, like you have no idea what the strategies are, what you're aiming for. Like the lights just sort of come on and you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Then you go back to the same machine, you put the quarter in and it's like just gutter balls every time. And you're like, but I love this machine. And I'm like, I know how to flip handles. Like, what's wrong with me? But it's like, sometimes it's not there, right?
Yeah. I mean, that like speaks true to form with regards to like adolescence and playing music in general. Because the first time you figure out how to do this, you're like, nothing musical is going to come out of this, but boy, oh boy, it doesn't look cool. And I can't wait to write my first guitar solo with a tapping lick.
It's like the first day E becomes D. It's
oh,
like, oh boy. Oh boy.
Like, I'm learning lateralis tonight.
Oh yeah. Put in the
Yeah.
extra matzo sticks.
Oh,
We're in drop B lane, baby.
Fucking, oh man.
I'm uncool, I'm the Urkel that everyone's Bill Murray. I've been broke in every sense of the word. And I keep chasing my next high score. Issues galore, I'm a walking, talking magazine. We all know that nobody reads. What's the use in words when they don't even understand me? And I've earned so many stripes that I've turned one shade. I'm afraid, cause I'm haunted by ghosts from my past. Every day is the same as the last. I keep having my scene stolen, but I keep rolling. Even though there's very little going for me, everyone's ignoring everything I say. Cause I want love like that. You make it look easy. You make it look easy. Cause I want love like that. You make it look easy. You make it look easy. I'm uncool, I'm the uncle that everyone's Bill Murray. I've been broke in every sense of the word.
So by contrast, then a couple of years later, you guys release Bill Murray, which is like, that's an incredibly thoughtful song. Both, again, speaking about like the nuggets and Easter eggs within the tune, but also just like the heartbreaking, but then optimistic by the end of it, like way that the lyrics kind of turn out. And it's like, it's like, well, I don't think you're using a pick in it, but that.
Oh, interesting. So
Okay, all right.
So,
yeah. So
okay.
here's the deal. We have Brock here. I'm gonna play. Brock's not gonna touch his fucking guitar. I'm gonna pretend that I know how to play all of the songs. All right,
it's
that's
cool.
how this is gonna work.
You might be I can't think of many people who've even taken the time to learn, our material. So kudos for that. First things first with the thing, like what I was thinking about when doing I had it in my head that like, I saw it, maybe it was like Guthrie Govan.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was saying like, when funk players are doing like that,
Yeah.
that like, they don't really do that.
Yeah.
Like, I think funk players are more like because like all the rhythm is coming from like bass and hi-hats and all the rest,
Of course,
right? So,
yeah.
so I was thinking like, because he took a jab at Corey Wong anyway. But like it was fresh in my mind as like clean up the funk. So when I was doing I was really trying to like pluck up instead of like what I would be more apt to do with like an acoustic cover set, which is play with all my might.
Yeah.
And getting those in. I really wanted the guitar track to just. Or, sorry, I'm tuned down.
Oh, dude.
So when we were composing the song, it used to just be one of those classic things, right? Because in this case, in like a lucid moment, wrote Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Everything but the chorus. I wrote those verses and went, Ian, I want to do a song about, the feeling of like some people in this world just get liked, and perhaps rightly or wrongly, they're just universally liked by people, even if they're kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And then there's people you go, well, I'm as quippy or whatever, but no one likes me just on face value, right?
Yeah.
So he was like, cool, let's do it. And we just muscled through the 3 chords that worked to write the song. Then when we got in the studio, it was like, okay, well, let's take it away from this, like, it used to have this whole, we were playing it like that.
Okay.
And it just kind of sounded dorky. So we, doing this, I started to think, okay, like other chords that could work in the key of G.
Yeah.
And I think of this chord, it's basically the B in second inversion.
Oh, okay.
But in my mind, I'm thinking about it like yeah, it's like the 5 of the 6. And again, I know you just finished saying like, I'm not a big music theory guy.
Yeah.
I'm not either, but like, because it resolves to the E minor.
Interesting.
So I didn't really think about it like.
Yeah, I
the full-on
immediately thought of it
seven,
as like a dominant 7. Oh, the first time I thought it was diminished. I was immediately going like
right.
fucking or like that sort of thing was like initially, and then when I listened back to it, I was like, no, there's something like
So it's just I think about it as just B in second inversion.
Wow, fucking.
So then the only other chords there, the only other thing that was weird about the verses was like when I first learned guitar, the whole modus operandi was like play the song to speed. Like I would just put on my favorite records and the old knowledge of like very slowly and do it, like play methodically. I was like, no. I would just hear a song and go, what are the chords in ultimate guitar? Okay, like let's say if it was Bill Murray was a pop punk song, I would be trying to play. So, but because my form was so poor, I would always bar my power chords like this, and I would get that high.
You've got the 13 in there every time. Okay. So
every time. So my poor technique, when I'm doing the Bill Murray verses, and to me, and then some might intellectualize and go, notice how Brock goes to the add 9. I'm like, it's just always kind of there.
That's so cool.
And by plucking up, I just made sure I wouldn't. Every single one would have that in it.
Now, was that similar? Like, was that like a similar like happy accident with regards to like the chorus?
Yeah, B minor, C. Exactly.
Dude.
So just like same sort of like logic, but like instead of there, because like I mean. Yeah, but it was like the same, the whole thing of like, oh, this top note, which is really the one you hear when you're doing a chord. Like,
yes.
If there's a singer sings that, they're just gonna hear that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so like I really wanted to like not step on the vocal when it goes away by that point in the.
Amazing.
So to me, that it's like you're filling pockets as opposed to just if the whole thing was just jazzy like that, I think the song would have taken this really kind of like, I don't know, just sound like jazz or lo-fi or something. And the whole idea was almost to like think about it's bluesy, but not in the way of like boomer bends and stuff. It's like
that's so fucking cool, dude. Like it's like the concept of, because I was playing in a small, I mean, for as long as we've known each other, I spent like 6 or 7 years like just as the one guitarist in a 2-piece. So it's a lot of like, yes, I want to fit as much harmony in there as possible, but I also don't want to step on the vocals of the of the singer. So and
when you're your own vocalist, you know exactly when to duck in and out, right? It's like it's like having that like innate knowledge of like, it was even the thing of like one of my favorite artists, Danko Jones, was like sometimes a lot of his guitar parts were like, I really can't sing and play guitar at the same time. So a lot of, you know, you'd be like,
Oh yeah, dude.
so it's
Yeah.
like you're literally separating it to the point where it's like I can't do both. So even when you're doing like this like dense chord progression, perhaps in like, you know, some of your songwriting, it's like all the little sort of like all those will happen not right over top of this like poignant line, right?
Course,
so
yeah.
it's like it's very much like you know, even just speaking about you and I, but for other guitar players, like we're all coming at the same task from like all the different angles based on our personal technique, sensibilities, genre. Like all of it is like, generally speaking, you don't want to do what you made in that vertical video, which is just in the middle of saying something really poignant and important.
Yeah, exactly.
It's buried in like, what was that? I couldn't hear that kernel of wisdom because was that Mixolydian?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, interesting, man, interesting. Nice nod to Danko Jones, by the way, because I know, like, the second you said it, I was like, oh yeah, he does that all the time. Gotta do a little bit of reminiscent of the days that just don't lie. You know, like it's there's never like, what is that? Yeah, dude. Fucking, what is the name of that song? It doesn't
Full of
matter.
regret.
Full of regret. That's it. Regrets I've had. Damn, fucking great song. Anyways.
So the
slight
only other
digression.
weird thing with like Bill Murray was there was a chord in the bridge that I probably only play right 70% of the time.
Oh, okay.
And I tried to, like, you know, I don't know if you've seen those websites where like you can put in one fret at a time and it will tell you what the chord name is. So apparently the chord was called C6/9. I don't know if you, in your dense guitar knowledge,
C6 slash like a, oh fuck, dude, I don't even know yet.
it's basically just two stacked power chords, like.
Dude. All right.
So, like-
I thought it was E minor. So here we go.
But again, it was like just going down the bridge thing. It was like, well, where do you go from there? Like if the song ultimately has to get back to here,
Yeah.
just try and milk the same C
Dude.
chord,
That's
which making this really like, it sounds dissonant. So you're like, please resolve it. And then you give him the good old trusty tonic chord. And it's like, so really that song is just kind of trying to stretch out G further than when your demo was just, it's a 1-4-5 in G. It's like, well, that's lame. Like, what else can we do, right? So it's just, even all the stuff that like kind of even like would seem out of key.
Yeah.
It's just like, as you say, well, if you think about it as a B dominant 7,
Yeah.
it's like, well, just kind of invert a B major and then isn't that kind of, right? So it's like, it's all like,
Cool.
trying to make it quirky and like exactly what you said about So Fine. Like something that's just like, the record kind of skips so all of a sudden you're like, what was that? And why did you do that? And it's like, because it is just that, it becomes that breath of fresh air that I'm sure Bill Murray would have been fine if we had just listened to our sensibilities and.
Yeah. But it's made more you with the act of like trying to develop these melodic concepts
Exactly.
in a way that's
So like I think that is the common thread where it's like we could have stopped right there and it's like there's like it's like nothing is wrong with a 1-4-5 and so many songs have been written with it that it's almost like it's so difficult for Ian and I find to go when we sit there and go, just as an exercise, let's do a song with 3 chords because we know it's possible. And by the end of the session, we've modulated, we've changed chord voicings, and we're like, we can't do it. So that still eludes us as like 3 chords in the truth. I don't know how, I don't know how Tom Petty does it, but
what you're able to do starting out with 3 chords in the truth, though, it's interesting, man, because like again, as we discussed off the topic, you and I have known each other for so long, and like your music has been so influential to me as a writer for, I mean, the last like 10, 15 years of my tenure like as a musician. And I mean, even that, just what you're saying right now is something that I still do without even thinking about it. I mean, I wrote a song recently, and it's on the first episode of the show, that's essentially like Wheat Kings. Like it's
right.
G to a C. But I play it in 6/8 and I go, and that idea of like taking something so simple but just being like, I gotta do something else with it. You know,
Exactly.
I just can't. It's just not me to go. You know, it's a big Dave Matthews thing as well, which of course you know I'm fucking crazy about. But
Exactly, and,
yeah.
and that to me is something where, you know, the dexterous side of guitar is the only side after all this time that I don't even like gravitate towards it. Even if there's like, you know, something vaguely acrobatic or histrionic about doing these like slash chords and stuff. It's like, but I really like even playing in 3/4 to this day for me is something that it's like I lose the pulse. It just becomes 4/4, and like I'm not one of those songwriters I can just sit there and
Really?
and I think a lot of that is like if you ever want your singer just to sound good, like singers doing anything over a 3/4,
Oh yeah.
it's just an excuse. Like, you know, like "Love on the Brain" by Rihanna, just as the
Yeah.
first example that comes to mind. Like it's, or like Tennessee Whiskey. It's like
Yeah.
anytime a singer's just doing 3/4, you just kind of know they're going to be an amazing singer over it. But as I don't sing for the band,
Yeah.
I think I kind of just like look at 3/4 as like, no, I want to count to 4 and start over and keep it relatively simple, because to
course.
me that's just, I think too much if I'm like
Yeah.
have to count.
Yeah, but I mean, like these limitations that you're like that you're outlining right now have led you to like an incredible career in music. I'm a big like I am always talking about ignore your weaknesses, cultivate your strengths. That's a big thing for me.
I
It's like
agree.
I don't know how to read. Well, I know how to read. I don't know how to read music. And I'm not
I still
gonna
struggle with reading.
I'm not gonna try. Yeah, fucking do. If it's got pictures to it, if it's
Yeah.
called Old Man Logan, I'll finish that bitch in 6 seconds. But anything else, you want me to read Vonnegut? Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like fucking. But though that concept of just like cultivating your strengths, as my like myself included. I mean, I've been able to like, you know, I made a living for like a long time and still do, like as a guitarist, that like I just do my thing. You know, when I get hired for my thing, and they're like, "Yeah, play Wagon Wheel." I'm like, I'll play Wagon Wheel, but I'm gonna play my Wagon Wheel. You know, and
Exactly.
like it's great and it's inspiring too, because like again, you as a guitarist, we can't help but like go on Instagram at the end of the night as we're trying to fall asleep and find some like 8-year-old Sudanese child that's like playing 8-finger tapping and be like, "Fuck me, dude, I gotta get up tomorrow and I'm throwing this in the fireplace." You know?
Right.
But then you come away with it with like everyone else appreciates you for exactly what you're doing. And is that not the beauty of songwriting? Is like understanding that every person that picks up an instrument and goes to develop this craft has their own unique voice that is equally as valid as Pat Metheny or Beyonce or Tom Waits or whatever. You know, it's like, that's beautiful. Truthfully.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, you know, those creatively inclined, I think like early on they have this like great taste, or at least an appetite for like, I know what I like. And even if it is, you know, it's like, I want to do these like complex chord voicings and rhythm, but smooth vocals over top of it. It's like, well, when you're 16, like, dare I say, you learn more about guitar later than when you start, right? So I think like the first couple years of any creative career, you're playing catch up to like, I know what I like,
Yeah.
but I'm just starting. And like,
Yeah.
you put lyrics to stuff, and like this, you know, some of my first lyrics I've ever wrote, you know, like I'll blush if I look at them. It's like, oh God,
Yeah.
what was I thinking, right?
Yeah.
But it's the doing that's more important.
Of course.
And then, yeah, and especially nowadays with like very real time reaction of like, you put a song out and it's not hot, like
Yeah.
you'll know. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
and then you can instantly be like, well, was it a fluke? Can I try that again? And
Yeah.
after enough data points, you can just, you know, as you say, learn what your strengths even are, because, you know, the arrogance of youth or whatever would be like, I don't have weaknesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
You haven't done enough to even know what those weaknesses could possibly be. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very easy and honestly probably beneficial to tell yourself in the early days, I don't have weaknesses, because the inhibition will get you
course.
every time. So.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's such an interesting. Man, that's so fucking cool. I've never looked at it like that. It's just a kind of a mantra that I tell myself now. But that's, yeah, man, that's fucking music's cool, dude. So with regards to like sounding like you and understanding that you are also in the mindset of like cultivating your strengths and everything like that. But you've been doing some session gigs recently, like country gigs.
Yes, country.
Okay, how has that been going? Because I would imagine you're not hired as to go. You know what I mean?
Not at all. So
I've got a theory, we've got chemistry. Sorry, but
so maybe the best starting point is to revisit your starting point, which was when I was playing in my very first band that you probably saw.
Yeah.
There was like a morbid fascination with like Maley and the Sons of Disaster and Southern metal and like bluesy, but like drop C kind of blues stuff. So I've always loved like the yeehaw sort of like I don't know, watching Western movies and stuff, I just thought it was like cool sound landscapes. Anyway, fast forward all these years later, and I'm like, I'm still interested in that stuff, but now I'm pretty entrenched in playing like pop rock kind of stuff. So we veer away from, one of the things Ian and I agreed on was maybe we're not a Southern metal band. And I went, yeah, okay. We're probably not a Southern metal band living in Canada.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, Kellen, a friend of mine, he used to play in a hardcore band called Dead and Divine.
Yeah.
Though now he's playing bass in a country band. Now he's getting his, yeehaw on. And I think they must have went down a list of like every guitar player they knew. And one day Kellen was like, do you want to go on tour and like help me in like a country band? And I was like, obviously, I mean, he asked me for a favor, so I'm like, I want to see this through as far as I go, but I was definitely thinking like, I'm probably not the guy you're looking for. Like I had a lot of just like self-imposed doubt of like, I don't know, man, I'll give it a shot kind of thing. And I was like, well, what's the nature of the tour? It's like, we're opening for Blackberry Smoke, which are like this, like, we want to talk like tone lords. They have like 3 guitar players, 2 18-wheelers full of like 1970 era vintage spec. So I'm like, what am I doing on this tour? I'm the only electric guitar player in this country band I'm playing with. We had 2 practices and then a 3-day drive to Vancouver where night 1 was. And I'm like, so my first gig, we were at the Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver. We're doing sound check. I walked through a buzzsaw on one song. The singer I picked at random, Corey. And he was like, well, I want to talk to you after sound check. And he was like, you're not playing that right, so let's just like figure it out. And he's like, okay, so the chorus is like, D and B, and then it goes to G. And then I was like, want me to play like G down here or up here? And he goes, I don't care, just play it right. And I'm like, okay, dude, so just kind of like being it over my head. And he wasn't like, the more I got to know him, that wasn't like a malice thing. He was literally saying, just play what you want, but play G. Yeah. So that tour I learned a lot about, being a session guy after relying on session guys for double experience.
Of course, yeah.
So that tour is like a multi-headed beast in terms of like the reasons why I would do it. It was like, yes, I have an affinity for, country, Western style music and always have. Never played it, but the opportunity to be in service of someone else's dream and like, oh, you want me to do just these notes or this exact pentatonic sequence and telling yourself, don't get fancy, don't impress him with watch me. It's like he didn't want that. He wanted and if it's like, even if I think I want to play something on night 2, it's like he wants, so do that. And it was like just the whole thing of like the act of like, putting yourself all on the line to someone else's like, hey, I believe this will go well. And then what started happening was like even the Blackberry Smoke guys, where they would come like peek over and, because I was running all digital, like heresy in their world, right? So I really, all that to say is I really felt like I came into that like fish out of water, like and even after the first show, I was like, I don't know if I can like make it through this tour, like being surrounded by like real amps on this guy who's never done a session plugged into a Helix. And but by the end of that run, it was like, the biggest like shot in the arm was the second guitar player of Blackberry Smoke, Paul. Wanted a crash course in Helix because he was like, I'm thinking like these 18-wheelers full of old amps and there's got to be a better way. And I think that creaked open the door for him, for these tone lords and like vintage spec guys to sort of be like, I think something to be said for digital. So that was like a real I came on the other side of that tour just sort of being like illuminated and coming back to double experience with like a better perspective on what the session players probably expect of our band and just like better ways of like how we could communicate things that we wanted. Like it was totally pivotal. And I would suggest if any guitarist is like, it's all originals, baby.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, like being like sitting in for other players,
Yeah.
I think is like you learn a lot about your original craft by taking your original craft out of it, you know? Like,
Wow, very cool. Is this something you do again?
oh, in a heartbeat, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome,
Yeah.
dude. Oh, fuck
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And that's the
great.
thing. It's like I'm like very passionate about the originals and the creating. I mean,
Yeah.
we just talked about like 2 of the creations.
Yeah.
But like frankly, it's like, yeah, you're just like you kind of run out of like hours in the week to be like, oh, I want to do this and this and this, which is why, yeah, for someone it's like, I want to do stand-up comedy, make a bunch of content, host a podcast. It's like for someone like you who can like put all that together, it's like the feeling goes both ways of like, you know, the mutual admiration because you've definitely been keeping busy and like
I appreciate
never
it.
breaking stride, man. So
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, no, it comes down to me, like for me, it's just like, because I still just throw spaghetti at a wall for stuff, and then when I find what the problem with ADHD, and we'll have a mental health conversation when we get into AI Freaks Out, which we'll touch on in a second, but like the problem with ADHD is you never know what's gonna stick with you for like decades and what you're gonna be obsessed about for 2 years and then be like, I don't want to play with you anymore. And so like the creative aspect of like doing all this stuff just comes down to like, what's going to stick? Like what can I align myself with that's an artistic way to express myself? Because music's a lot of fun. I don't always get the opportunity to be funny. And comedy's a lot of fun, but sometimes I'm a real sad dude. You know what I mean? So like having the 2 outlets, I find is like a helpful way for me to do that thing, which is the same way like you've always wanted to play in a country band, but you guys have a niche, you have a brand, you've got your finger on the pulse of your brand.
Right.
And it's like, all right, well, I guess, I mean, I could just, you know, learn how to hybrid pick in my bedroom, and then you get the call. It's like, our drummer died, or can you come in? You know what I mean? Like,
well, like even back in the day where it was like I was playing Telecasters with Drop C. So in my mind, I was like, I'm just one good country demo away from changing Ian's mind about our Southern metal proclivities. But like, I was playing like the country gear in a heavy rock band. So in my mind, I was always like, you know, you never know when it's going to just like suddenly slip into there, but you're right. Like it just got further and further away, and you know, rightly, I think, and for the better, just being like, yeah, Ian and I aren't meant to make country music together. And I don't even think if I were to start, you know, Ian vanishes into thin air tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do like an originals country band myself. I wouldn't know that whole, you know, side of like playing ball in Nashville and like really kind of like doing all of that. I don't have the first clue about, you know, making any kind of advancements there. So for me, it's like, it's as you say, it's like, it's these things find a way of happening where exactly who you are, if you could put that on full display, it ends up manifesting because it's like, it's just, you know, you're just going to like lean into the turn. You're not going to like want to do comedy and want to do music, but be like, one day I'll like paint pictures on stage or something. It's like, it's like
absolutely.
If you were thinking about it, not to get like all like, you know, hippy dippy with it, but it's like you're literally just kind of like manifesting it. It's like all these years, it's like I've you know, can tickle these funny bones and I can like play guitar. It's like it'd be a shame if I couldn't find a way to unite them, and lo and behold, it's like you have. So it's like it's almost like 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah. And the way to do it is to like just try to channel that aspect of yourself that you're trying to convey to an audience, because people get bogged down with the monetary aspect of things, but it's like, and it's not that you're not going to make any money, because people have a misconception that you're either starving in a van, and you do, like you pay your dues and you do, or you're like living in a mansion. But it's like there is a happy middle ground, and you bob and weave out of it. And like you start starving, and then you go, all right, time to go join a cover band. And you join a cover band for 6 months, and then you're not starving anymore, and you're like back to the original. You know, it's always navigating the ability to honestly convey what you're doing. And that is the main point or thesis behind not just this particular podcast, but this podcast in general. Is it's like, write whatever the fuck you want. Just make sure it's true. If you're someone that goes out clubbing all the time and you love listening to fucking write that. Don't make any fucking person with an acoustic guitar and a beard make you feel shitty about the stuff. But if you're putting out the shit because you think that's what's going to get you famous, it's just going to make you real sad. Okay? Like that's at the end of the day, you're just going to be fucking depressed.
AI freaks me out. I have no doubt that sentence is here on earth. Simulating failure, complicating and recurring test results.
as you just mentioned, like AI freaks me out. I think just to dovetail to what you just said.
Yeah.
Um, I would even suggest it goes a step further than the writing, and even how you capture that song. By that I mean like the recording of it.
Yeah.
I think there is something to be said of, Ian and I have certainly seen the way of like comping 100 performances together, and a very like, especially with like, things like equal temperament and tuning guitars. Like I've had to tune 2 chords because of the intonation, or just like these instruments are approximations of like
Yeah.
a note, right? So, if you play something, it's like, hey, E's in tune down there. It's like you try and play like, there's like probably the B string is like,
yeah, it's like a couple cents flat or something.
so like we've really, this like little droplet of water of like, wow, creativity, and we like carry it into the studio. Like that evaporates really quickly when it just becomes like a lesson in like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. So having done that recording, I think with things like the advent of streaming and being able to, Ian and I can show our process on things like Twitch and actually even write songs on there.
Yeah.
It's not quite like the AI getting into it, but certainly we're like not even reliant on technology. But what we put forth is that if the task was always to capture our performance or our capacity to perform, whatever that might mean,
Yeah.
that kind of starts with like a one take of not just writing the song, but creating demos on Twitch in front of a live audience. So that it factor there, and this one complete, unabridged, not stopping for any kind of take or overdubbing.
Yeah.
I think in that process, like when you first do it, like you won't like it, because as it turns out, it's very hard to like yourself, even harder to love yourself. So if you want to just, I'm going to sing and play something right now for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Almost anyone would go back and go, I don't like how I did that. And it's like, but that's what you sound like.
Yeah.
So we started kind of like really just sort of like embracing technology as like a trapdoor into maybe making authentic art, and not being maybe too scared of, like we talk about in the song AI Freaks Me Out, like not being too like getting freaked out by, everything that goes beyond like we all just be sitting in our rooms composing it in whatever, but with computers in our pockets and being able to like, I don't like that, edit this, auto tune, I'll use take 100. Like something is getting lost where it's like, but what was take 100? Is that Logan Brown, or is that just like a really edited version of something that was like this little droplet of like creativity? So I think using the tech has been like, we do try to embrace it, even as freaky as modern tech might be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's a good tool, and that's all these things ever are, is tools. You can't lose I mean, there's certain things. I mean, even a metronome, for instance. Like, there's so many songs. "Feeling All Right" by Joe Cocker. The second the drum, it was not tracked to a metronome. The second the drums come in and it stops being just piano and that shaker, it goes up 3 BPM. I think Back in Black starts off at like 120 and ends at like 128. Like, it's a dramatic increase. Like, these things were not recorded, but now we have clicks. But with the advent of clicks, we lose that, the natural wave that's going to happen live. It's going to, and then you end up with this like, this dissonance between, why don't they sound the exact same live as they do on the record? And AI freaks me out for sure. But I think when you look at it from the perspective of, this is just a tool. We've always had AI. We've had auto-tune. Auto-tune is AI. We've had this stuff that's AI. We've had digital delays that you can quantize to like, we've had all this stuff before. So demystifying that is not only a way to convey that message to your audience, but I would imagine is a way to convey it like to yourself as well. It's very easy to get bogged down with like ChatGPT has like actively made a bio writer obsolete. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And like all things, I mean, some of that is cool. I mean, like even with the phones, like taking songwriting out of it, it's like, we got GPS, we got maps, like it's great. Like there's some huge positives to it. And there's also like, tremendous, like it gets far out fast, or it's like, news catered to you based on exactly what you already know and like. All it's just like it's already gotten far past,
Yeah.
obviously, right? So I think like when we do apply the songwriting to it and try to be like, okay, like how do we make things? It's just another metronome. It's just another tool in the toolkit. I think like what that really steered Ian and I towards to was this notion that when things are quantized and when things are perfect, you know, the two of us have like talked a lot about like why is music a thing, and like not to get like too hippy did with it, but it's like, yeah, why do we have ears? And like music does nothing for you than sound good. And I think it's like over the years you've gotten really good at just like identifying patterns. So I'll mention Billy Joel again, but like that song, Anthony's song, like verse 1, verse 2 are the exact same arrangement. Nothing's added. There's no like extra level in the composition. Fast forward now, pop music, it's like new elements get introduced every 4 bars, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because I think the ear gets fatigued with like the same 120 BPM.
Yeah.
Everything's locked to the same thing. Like we start to recognize like, oh, it's just this old thing again. And we tune it out. So we need more like distracting elements, like snap us out of this, like our ears just go like it's like an uncanny valley kind of stuff where it's like, you know, the sound of a guitar chord is inherently not perfect. So when we start to hear things get tuned to high hell, it like, I think the human ear, we've really got to a point where like the technology, while understanding what problems it's meant to solve, it's actually created these problems where it's almost like it's forcing you to come up with like throwing shit at your arrangement. When it's like, you look at these old songs, like the Joe Cocker one you mentioned that aren't on a click.
Yeah.
They probably got away with like an identical arrangement in verse 1 and verse 2 because they weren't even like on a like fundamental level. Like their ears like, no, it sounds good. Because all that happened was the BPM wandered.
Whole song's just 2 fucking chords. Whole song is So is Use Me by Bill Withers. I mean, you know what I mean? Other than the I know, which is also a placeholder lyric. So is fucking Ain't No Sunshine pretty much. Like, dude, that's tech talk with Tins. You know what I mean? Like, fucking let's go, dude. Yeah.
So it's like, and leave it to the band that would literally, you know, get preoccupied with writing a whole song called AI Freaks Me Out. Like these are literally, this goes back to your point of like, what was the decision to like write songs about chemistry? It's like when Ian and I put down the instruments, we just go, so what's up with AI? And we just like, it's just like a 1-to-1. So to us, then we go, oh, talking time's over. Let's write a song. We're thinking about things like modern AI, and then it's just AI freaks me out. And oh my God, that was another example of like, hey, Ian, I have these words. And at the time we were definitely in the middle of our Danko Jones era or kick, if you like. And so it's like, that was definitely like hard on sleeve. He's a rocker. And maybe instead of going and pulling from like that Prince side of like, you know, provocative kind of thing, we just thought we'd speak on something topical, you know, and just go, and then it's like, it's not my fault, you know, like some of these topics like hadn't been exhausted by Blue Oyster Cult. Like I'm pretty sure they haven't sang about like, you know, these kinds of science fiction things, maybe other science fiction things. So that we just saw it as a way to be like, quick, we'll be one of the first in the conversation about modern AI applications. But I think really at the end of the day, it's not, that song is more like an exaggeration, and like it's a place to put the feelings of like, anytime you kind of feel like, oh my God, is it listening to us? It's like, probably. But like, you know what I mean? It's like, what are you gonna do about it? Like,
It's not me they're after, you know what I mean?
Go live in the woods and just like not have technology and tinfoil around your head. And it's like, no, like.
No, the FBI agent is not like, the 9th page of Pornhub, huh? Really? All right. Well, fucking let's go. You know, like they don't care. All right?
No, you're not that interesting.
Yeah. Here's where they start paying attention. I'm gonna get you, Trudeau. All right. Thank you, guys. We're gonna get you. You know. I've lost my marbles and my train of thought.
We were talking about AI freaks me out. It was like, so was it one that you like picked out as like, was there a specific reason why out of that? Was it the lyrics that you hear, or is that like just as like a third party when you listen to that song? Like, is it hard to ignore the lyrics? You kind of just hear it's a rock song and pentatonic all day. Is like, where does your sensibility kind of like land when a song like that comes on shuffle? Is it like
Well, for me specifically, like because I do like the AI freaking me out thing is a it's a very it's a feeling that I get, man. So having a song, especially when I mean, including watching the music video, where like a lot of it is like the spoof on Max Headroom, and you've got the like the joke in the beginning and all these like it's very obvious that it's like satirical or like exaggerating it to the point where like, oh, okay, like it's not, there's nothing necessarily to be like, you can be scared of it, but you can't be like terrified to the point where you're not leaving your home because you're like, what the fuck is ChatGPT gonna do, so hearing those lyrics, I find it's a good way to, like with all music, when I'm feeling sad, I listen to sad songs. It's like that helps me cope with
Yeah.
the nature of the way the world has gone and the development of that sort of technology. And then on top of that, I mean, you've got fucking, yeah, it's fucking great. You know what I mean?
It's just,
like
yeah.
it's packaged in sonically in cool shit that I want to listen to. So.
Yeah, and again, it's like, and I wish after all the Bill Murray, like the 5 of 6, I wish, there was anything clever to say about it other than, when we wrote that, we were literally thinking, like I said, like, what would Danko Jones do for songwriting? We kind of, that's why the verses are very like, like that whole thing of like popping in when the vocals aren't.
Yeah.
So that was like, maybe as like clever as we got, but like to us, we saw it as like, when we basically programmed this riff to just be like, it's just, the song is just this riff over and over again, like almost like as mechanically as possible, pretty stiff kind of riff. Again, it's like, but this is like me looking at it from like 10,000 feet and like looking back at it, but like I'm sure, because it's how Ian and I communicate creatively, I'm sure we like broke it down to like, downstrokes only, make it as robotic as possible. Yeah. So like it's very like, and then like this boneheaded thing, but we're singing about like Rocco's Basilisk and all these things. So we were like, the contrast now comes in like how stupid like the music is, but then how like cerebral and like far and wacky the lyrics are. So it's like, if the chords were like, and it was too like, they just said like Dave Matthews-y, I think people would just be like, this is really pretentious and like it just sounds like like into like I'm smarter than you kind of music, which we don't intend to make. And I think it brings it grounds the song in a more like exactly what you're saying about that pumped up kick song.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like bipping and bopping and going, I love pinch harmonics and stuff. And you're like, wait, what did you just say?
It's
and then
it's like horse, dude. Yeah. You fucking you like you serve up on a nice silver platter like rock riffs and downstrokes, and then you bite into it and you're like, the flavor, the lyrics, holy shit.
So it's definitely like we really try to like do that, as opposed to just like, oh, let's phone in the instruments. It's like we almost look at it as like, we have to just, get the Swiss cheese slices on there or whatever. Like it's like there's no need to get the Gouda or like the fresh buffalo mozzarella. It's like, just make it cheesy, man. Like craft slice, call it a day, because that's like what it needs.
Interesting, man. I mean, upon listening to your music, I've always known that there's a lot of thought, and I mean, of course, listening to you guys, like even from like the heavy rock days, when you, like, if I can remember how to play it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're always like, there's these guys are thinking. You know what I mean? It's like there's something happening here that's just as cerebral as it is like coming from the heart and wanting to showcase a perspective or tell a story. But then getting to talk to you about the songwriting process and both confirming that and also understanding like where exactly the cerebral part leaves and the intuitive guitarist or the intuitive musician takes over is like very interesting.
And like, so don't get, for, these like eureka moments that even like you're having, it's like, I think Ian and I were always like a little bit like, we wouldn't want to like weird someone out with like, oh my God, there's all these like overthinking, like it's probably literally what it is when it comes to like the ideas that get on the cutting room floor that we don't put into the songs. It's very like, it goes back to the thing of like, we just want people to enjoy it. And we do think that like, you know, you start to like unspool the thinking about it. It's almost like, but like the main takeaway is like we're not making music because to us it's like a, you know, academic exercise. Like where we really do like look at it as like, wow, this song would be fun and like hopefully it can connect in these ways. But then we also like, because we take a lot of pride in it, we find ourselves being like, I want to tell people about these cool layers, but it's almost like our job isn't to like hold people's hand and go, did you get the cool reference?
Yeah.
So like we send these boats out of the dock and we go, half the stuff is going to just go over people's heads. But I think like if you fail to put that like thought into these like minute details,
Yeah.
your song starts to fall apart and turns into, well, if the chord progression is just like the four things, and if you didn't think about how it complements, you know, like the boat just kind of falls apart before it gets anywhere. So like we've never really even done like podcasts like this at all, and it's just something that we've never bringing it all back to like Twitch and the songwriting. Like we just felt like there was so much like mystification with songwriting. So many people were like, you know, I don't know about you, but when I watched that Get Back Beatles documentary, I had to like pause it and put it down. And it's like, oh my God, he's about to write Hey Jude. You hear the piano thing, and for me, I'm like, it's the take. And I'm like, you're like seeing these things, which is like, it's like fucking Jesus walking on water kind of stuff for me, which is like, were we supposed to see this? And I think like, yeah, like, I mean, could you imagine if like cameras were rolling during Rumors by Fleetwood Mac? Like that would have been pivotal.
Dude, that would have been that would have been up with the Kardashians level shit for sure.
And all we have is the music, and yet that's enough. Like I can just hear that record and it's like it speaks for itself. The genius is evident. So then on some level underneath it all, not to like undermine the existence of songwriting podcasts, but like you can't help but be like, you want to make music that does the Fleetwood Mac thing, which is just like there was no peek behind the curtain. They didn't just, well, hey, everyone, welcome back to our channel where we're going to demystify it. And like, while we love doing that, there is something to be said of like, sometimes music is just like the existence of it is the only explanation. You just go, I don't know, man. If someone can't listen to a song off Rumors and just go like, wow, marvel in the genius, then it's like, you know, so it's like, I think like maybe on some way, like failing that, all Ian and I could do is at least try and be like, hey, like we care about songwriting, and it's not throwaway to us, you know?
And I think what's important is like, again, to your point about like the advent of technology and as we've gone on as a society is like, what I hope the importance of this podcast is like articulated in between me threatening Trudeau. Fucking the importance of this podcast that I hope is being articulated is like, if you are struggling as a songwriter, or you want to write songs, hearing it broken down in a way that's like, this part of it was cerebral, this part of it was just us being like, fuck it, let's go, let's just give her, you know, like take one, let's go.
Because hopefully it's like proof positive that it's like you can absolutely just, you know, I pick D, A, and E, and it's like you got to hit. Because like we mentioned Tom Petty before, like apparently he just played the free falling chord progression for like 2 weeks, and then just by the second week, and I'm free, and just like you're like, oh my God, like all I did was just the same 3 chords everyone learns in their first day of guitar, and it's like you're that far away from nailing songwriting. I think it's as you say, where it's like these years of experience and sort of like honoring your own authenticity, because you have to kind of learn how to appreciate the aspects about oneself. And then it's either you be one of those bands that like their first album's the best and they just lucked into it early in their career and they spend the rest catching up, or what I think, and I'm, dare I say, proud to say, is like, I feel like Ian and I one up each other every time. I feel like our music has just done this. Hasn't been like this. But I feel like I can look back and go, it was my best work up until that moment, but you do learn, and you do learn how to get better, and you can't learn if you don't pick people's brains and get to the bottom of it, right? Like we can't all be recreating Rumors out there and like just blowing what precious budget remains from your music on like, you know, all kinds of 70s era drugs and stuff, right? At a certain point you're like, new guitar strings, eating,
blow.
And it's like, these days, you know, it's like the starving artist still remains and you buy the new guitar string, but like...
Oh man, fucking! I feel like that's a great place to wrap it up the podcast. But like, dude, this was a pleasure. Thank you for not only like sharing the process behind these three songs, but also being so articulate and open minded with the idea of demystifying the song. Because we don't know, I don't know who's watching. You know, maybe you don't play music at all. Maybe you are a wicked songwriter, but you're in a plateau. Maybe you know how to write a verse and you don't know how to write a chorus. Whatever the case may be. I hope you got something from this because I know I certainly did. Years later, still fucking, the second I think I've got it figured out, man, Double Experience is still coming into the clutch and teaching me some shit, which is like unreal, dude.
Started from the gym and now we're here.
Yeah.
Begging to see the inside of a gym.
Right on, dude. Oh man, well, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're gonna have all the links either popping up on screen right now. Oh, hey, look at that. I really hope they don't pop up anything actually, and I'm just doing this for the next like 30 seconds. You know, you follow, listen on Spotify, any place that you get your music to Double Experience. They're on YouTube, everything like that. And if I can give you a piece of advice. Hug a Lebanese person today. I just think they're neat. All right, have a good one. Fucking suck you later. Cheers.